Start the webinar.
Greetings, folks. We'll get started here in just a moment.
Lori will yell at you. Oh, there you go. Thanks for being on. We greatly appreciate this. On our last From the Woods today for the year.
2025. Can't
Believe
believe
that?
it. I know,
It's
man.
like, whoo, gone.
It's been a good run, Renee.
It has. And we're keeping on, keeping on. I already got January almost booked.
Yeah, hopefully we'll keep all our guests. Yep.
Mhm. Y'all make sure you come back that
Yeah.
first day in January.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and if
Excited.
you need your From the Woods Today fix, remember we got tons of videos on our website and on our YouTube channel.
So January 7th will be our first show back.
During our retreat.
That's gonna be fun. I think it's right after though. Do 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 do.
I know, man. It's like, how long does it take to burn a minute?
A minute is like 5 minutes when you're waiting on it, and a
Yeah,
minute is like 10 seconds when you're not.
it's funny.
Go ahead and record to the. All right, are you ready?
About as ready as I can get.
Awesome. All right. Hi, I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. Billy, this is our last show of the year. I think we've done like 48 shows.
Wow, what a great year, I
Yes,
mean, it really has been. And, it's been a great year because of you all out there. Thank you
exactly.
all so much for being with us on a weekly basis or catching the podcast or catch us on YouTube. We really appreciate it. You make this show, so thank you all so much.
You do. And that's exactly how I was going to start the show, Billy. And I kind of have the
Yep.
same wavelength going. I
Yeah.
really appreciate everything that you all have done for us. Our numbers are going up every week and our views and all of that, which helps us to keep the show going. So we greatly appreciate that. But like Billy says every week, tell a friend, let
Yep.
people know. We really appreciate you also. Please let us know any topics you want to see for 2026.
Right.
Because
Yep.
I got a blank slate right now.
Well, not too blank, but yeah.
I got January full, but
Yeah. Yeah.
if there's something seriously that you want to know about, let us know.
Sure.
If you email forestry.extension@uky.edu, that comes directly to me, and just say show idea, and I will try my best to find someone. And if I don't know, Billy will know someone probably who knows who to go over the topic.
Yep. Our team's got a lot of connections here, so we'll try to get the right people here to cover the important topics. And if these topics are important to you, they're probably important to others. And the more people we kind of get all on the same page, and get our understanding up, the better stewards we can be of our forests and wildlife and natural resources. So for that, we really appreciate you all so much. And hey, we're going to finish strong today with a
We
great
are.
program. We've got Miss Laurie Thomas on, and Laurie's famous for her trees of the week, obviously, and she's got a big catalog of those. But we've asked her to talk today about kind of the conifers that are out there, right? I mean, we are.
Christmas season, come
It is. I love
on.
it. I love it. We are really kind of a hardwood state with mostly deciduous trees, but we do have some conifers here, and Laurie's going to kind of cover those, and they are certainly important, even if they're not huge in numbers here in the state. So looking forward to Laurie's presentation on the conifers of Kentucky. And then we have Miss Anna Riker with us. She is talking about foraging out there in the forest for Christmas-related arts and crafts activities. So we love Anna. She coordinates the Master Naturalist program here for us at the university, and does some other great stuff, including being on this show and sharing great information with you all. So I really look forward to having Laurie and Anna on their final show of 2025. And Renee, big thanks to you, really. I mean, you're the anchor behind this program, and you keep it going. So I really appreciate all you do for From the Woods Today and for our folks here in Kentucky and
Well,
beyond.
I appreciate you being my co-host because you help me every week, and I really
Teamwork, right?
appreciate that. Yeah, especially when you're busy in the fall,
Yeah,
so I really
okay.
appreciate you joining
No,
me.
I value this opportunity to kind of be with you and with our audience out there. So thank you all.
Awesome. All right, so let's get this party started. Lori, woohoo! You know, Lori, it was just dawning on me while we were sitting there talking, and you may talk about this in your presentation, so just wait if you do. Because Billy mentioned something, and not everybody, knows the difference between hardwood and softwood. And I was just wondering, do you mention that in your presentation? Or if not, if you could kind of tell us what is the difference?
No, I do refer to it, but I don't go into any detail. But conifers, we refer to them in forestry terms as softwoods a lot of times. And it's a more of a botanical description. It's not really a description of the wood because many of our conifers have very hard wood. So it's not a great descriptor. It's just a terminology that's kind of evolved since then. And we tend to call our deciduous trees, our broadleaf ones, hardwoods when sometimes like think about red maple, it has very soft wood. So it's just one of those terms, softwood, hardwood, but it's more of not really a true description. So
Right. No,
Because I was
that's
wondering,
good.
because I'm like, if you went up to, a conifer and you like, it would still be hard. You would think it was
right.
hard. To me, soft
Right.
would be more like butter, or
Hmm.
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
And so for the people out there that don't know, I thought it
Yeah.
might be good to kind of say why we
Hmm.
do this, why we
Hmm.
Certainly.
say it.
Yep.
Yeah. No doubt.
Awesome.
Well,
So,
Laurie, looking forward to this segment.
yeah.
I always enjoy when you kind of bring these groups together, right,
Mhm.
and talk about them. I mean, I appreciate each of your individual videos, but I really think when we kind of get these side by side comparisons, it's really a good way to kind of get I don't know, a fuller understanding of what's out there and how to distinguish one
Overview, I
from
guess.
another. Yeah. So
Mhm.
anyway,
Yeah.
I really appreciate these, and you've done them for oaks and hickories and maples.
Maples, right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's really great. I just want to brag on you because I do think it's a valuable resource.
Awesome. Well, hopefully this will be, it does give you an introduction to the conifers in Kentucky. And we're talking what's native, and we got lots of conifers planted throughout the state, but what's native here in the state. And we focus on trees, usually since we're here on From the Woods Today and forestry. But realizing that I only briefly describe each one of the species, but there are videos for all of them except for Canada yew and for northern white cedar that you have the full complete descriptive video for individual species. So if you want to know more, say about eastern red cedar, I only just the briefest of touch on it here. You can go watch the video and find out all about its natural history, its range, with the leaves, the fruit, the seed, all that good stuff, how the wood's used and things like that. So, but here we have conifers of Kentucky.
Great.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
They're good.
I'm Laurie Thomas with the University of Kentucky Forestry and Natural Resources Extension, and I'm here with the conifers of Kentucky. Even though Kentucky's forest is predominantly a deciduous forest and it is classified as an oak hickory forest, Kentucky has numerous native conifers throughout the forest and planted throughout our landscapes. They include pines, cedars, and hemlocks, and we're going to look at those today. The term conifer means cone-bearing or cone-bearer. Conifers bear cones. Conifers usually have needle-like or scale-like leaves, and they're generally evergreen, and they often have a regular or symmetrical branching pattern. Most conifers are monoecious, meaning one tree produces both male pollen cones and female seed cones, typically with the female cones higher up for better wind pollination. Junipers and yews are an exception to this. Conifers are a subset of gymnosperm, which means naked seed, meaning their seeds aren't enclosed in an ovary or what we call a fruit. Conifers include many of the world's most interesting and useful trees, especially in the temperate forests of both the northern and southern hemisphere. Conifers have been around for a very long time. They appeared in the fossil record more than 300 million years ago, long before angiosperms or our flowering plants. They were the dominant land plants during the Mesozoic era. Conifers are commercially the most important of the gymnosperms. Today, there are 6 to 8 conifer families worldwide with over 600 different species. Although the total number of species is relatively small compared to angiosperms, conifers are ecologically and commercially important. They are the dominant plants over large areas of land, most notably the boreal forest of the northern hemisphere, but also in similar cool climates in mountains further south. In the United States, the conifer families include the Pinaceae, the Taxaceae, and the Cupressaceae, and all three families are represented in Kentucky. Here are the conifers of Kentucky by family. In the Cupressaceae, we have bald cypress, eastern red cedar, northern white cedar. In the Pinaceae, we have eastern white pine, we have pitch pine, we've got shortleaf pine, and Virginia pine, and eastern hemlock. And in the Taxaceae, we have Canada yew, and this is a small shrub, and it's relatively rare in the state. So looking at a few conifer statistics from data from 2020 collected by the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service in the Forest Inventory Analysis, you'll see our different conifer species on the left-hand side and then total number of stems in Kentucky on the right-hand side. And you'll notice looking at those numbers that eastern red cedar has the most number of stems of any of our conifer species in the state, with Virginia pine coming in next. Now, let's look at a few tips that can help in conifer identification. So when we're looking at conifers to identify them, starting with the leaves is the best approach, just like when we're looking at deciduous trees or our broadleaf trees. So remember we said that conifers have needle-like or scale-like leaves. Here's a nice example of a scale-like leaf, those overlapping scales. Then they can have needles that are just singly borne on a stem. There's just one needle attached to the stem. And then the next is having needles that are grouped, like we have down here on the bottom. And knowing the number of grouping can help you identify a species, because different species, if they have grouped needles, they'll be grouped different numbers. So we've got some needles that are grouped in twos, and those are held together by a little woody cup called a fascicle. So they can be grouped in pairs of twos, pairs of threes, pairs of fives here in the state. So now let's look at those in photographs as opposed to drawings. So when we're looking at our leaves, we've got needle-like leaves, as we see right here on our eastern white pine, a long thin needle. And we'll look at these more closely in a few more slides. Or we have scale-like needles. You can see those overlapping scales that we see in our eastern red cedar. And remember, counting the number of groups of needles can help you identify those that have needle-like scales. All right, let's have a little test time. So test question 1. Does this tree have needle or scale-like leaves? Hopefully everybody's saying it has needle-like leaves, and this is our example that we saw on the previous slide of eastern white pine. And you can see how those needles are grouped together, that little wooden cup that holds those needles together. Test number 2. Now we're looking at how these needles, if they're grouped or if they're single. So are these needles singly attached to the stem, or are they in bundles? So if you look close, hopefully you can see that there's one needle attached to the stem. So these would be singly attached needles. Question number 3. Are these needles in bundles of 2 or 5? So we can look, we see our little down below the fingertips there, the little wooden cup holding the needles together, and then you simply count the number of needles. We see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 different needles all grouped together in a bundle. So hopefully everybody got 5. Our final question and test time. We're going to check to see if these needles are in bundles of 2s or 3s. So remember, you're going to start up close to the stem, see where there's a cup holding the needles together, and then count those needles that are bundled. And remember, look at more than one grouping of needles. But when we look closely at these, and I've kind of highlighted it with the yellow circle, you can see we've got 1, 2, 3 needles. And you can move over to the next one to the right of it, and you see 1, 2, 3 needles as well. So this specimen has needles in bundles of 3. Good job, everyone. All right, so now we're going to look a little more closely at each one of the different species of conifers that we find natively here in the state. And remember, for my list, we've got trees in the Cupraceae family, trees in the Pinaceae family, and we have the one shrub in the Taxaceae family. So we're going to look at these a little more closely, but still relatively briefly, because up on our Common Trees of Kentucky website, we have videos for each of these species, much more in depth and detail, talking about all of the different identification parts, the tree, the leaves, the what the fruit looks like, what the bark looks like, what the seeds look like, as where they grow, what their actual range is throughout the state, and then a bunch of fun facts as well. So check out the individual videos for each of these trees, but right now let's just briefly go over them. So we'll start out with bald cypress, Taxodium distichum, and it's one of the most distinctive southern conifers with its deciduous foliage. So this one's deciduous. It does lose its needles each fall, grows all new ones in the spring. It has a buttressed trunk and its formation of cypress knees, which we're all kind of familiar with. It is the classic tree of that southern swamp. Because of its attractiveness, it's been widely used as an ornamental well beyond its natural range, so we'll find it planted throughout the state. Bald cypress is native to the southeastern United States and is naturally found only in southwestern Kentucky along the Mississippi, Ohio, and Green rivers. Bald cypress, as we said, is a deciduous conifer that has small, linear, flat needle-like leaves. They're usually only about 1/4 to 3/4 inches long and are usually two-ranked, kind of like you would see on a feather or a comb. The branchlet structures that these form resemble a feathery compound leaf. In autumn, the leaves turn a beautiful russet or copper color before being shed. Staying in the Cupraceae family, there's eastern red cedar, Juniperus virginiana. Its common name is misleading because it's not a true cedar tree. It's really a juniper, hence its scientific name, Juniperus virginiana. It is a common conifer that grows on a variety of sites, but it's most common on poor, dry soils derived from limestone substrate or rock. It is the most common conifer found in Kentucky, as you remember from our statistics table. Eastern red cedar is considered a pioneer or an invader species of old fields and open forest sites. It's the first one on the scene after we've abandoned agriculture in a field. That'll be one of the first trees you see pop up. The bluish berries or modified cones of juniper trees are used to provide gin with its characteristic flavor. And the scientific name juniperus comes from the Latin juno, which means young, and perere, which means produce, hence youth producing or evergreen. The leaves are evergreen and occur in two forms. On seedlings and new twigs, the leaves are pointed and needle-like, often light green. On mature branches, they are overlapping scale-like leaves that are tight against the twig. Now, northern white cedar is the last of the Cupraceae family that's here in the state. Its scientific name, Thuya occidentalis, is also called eastern white cedar, arborvitae, and swamp cedar. The tree provides valuable shelter and browse in winter deer yards, and it's is a really widely planted ornamental. Northern white cedar is a conifer found on moist soils in the lake states, northern New England and eastern Canada. It also occurs locally in the southern Appalachians on limestone outcrops, and it's found scattered in several eastern and southeastern counties in Kentucky. It is also known as the tree of life because indigenous peoples taught French explorers to make a vitamin C rich tea from its needle to curb scurvy, thus saving lives. The leaves are evergreen, scale-like, and on main shoots, and they're about 1/4 of an inch long with long points. The lateral shoots are flattened, and they're about 8½ inches long with short points. Now let's look at some of the species in the Pinaceae family that we find here in Kentucky. The first one is eastern white pine, Pinus strobus. It's a valuable and versatile conifer. It's also called northern white pine. White pine is one of the largest of northeastern conifers, and it commonly grows 80 to 100 feet tall with a diameter easily of 2 to 3½ feet. Young trees tend to be pyramidal and usually grow with one central leader, and the layers or those whorls of horizontal branches give the white pine a very distinctive appearance in middle and old age. Due to its fast growth rate, it's widely used for timber, landscaping, Christmas trees, and reforestation purposes. Eastern white pine is the state tree of Maine and Michigan. Its leaves are soft and flexible. They're usually about 3 to 5 inches long, and they're needle-like leaves that occur in groups or bundles of 5. So it's very distinctive. Those needles will be in groups of 5. The needles are bluish green in color, which you'll notice that a lot when you see them from a distance in a landscape. They appear this color because there are several grayish-blue lines of stomata, which are these minute pores in the surface of the leaf or stem of the plant. And we have shortleaf pine, Pinus echinata. It's one of the commercially important southern yellow pines. Depending upon locale, the species is called shortleaf yellow, southern yellow, oldfield, short straw, or Arkansas soft pine. Got lots of different common names. The bark has small surface pockets about the size of a pencil point, which are resin or pitch pockets. And the specific epithet, echinata, is from the Greek echinos, which means hedgehog or prickly, in reference to the cone scales. There's little scales on the tip of the cone. Shortleaf pine has the widest geographic range of any pine in the southeastern United States. It is found mostly in the eastern portion of Kentucky. Shortleaf pine, as we said, is an evergreen, and the needles are in bundles or fascicles of 2s and 3s. This is why it's really important to look at more than one set of bundles. And the needles are typically about 3 to 5 inches long. They're slender and they're flexible. They're dark yellow-green, and the needles typically persist 2 to 4 years. Continuing on with the Pinaceae family, we have pitch pine, Pinus rigata. It's considered to be one of the most productive timber pines on poorer sites. The wood is very resinous, so it's resistant to decay, which made it important in the early days of wooden shipbuilding, and the seeds provide a good source of food for a variety of small mammals and birds during the winter months. And get this, the bark does not have pitch pockets like shortleaf pine. Pretty funny. Pitch pine's native range is from Maine to Georgia, and the vast New Jersey pine barrens are comprised mostly of pitch pine. In Kentucky, it's mostly found in the eastern portion of the state, with pockets in western Kentucky. Pitch pine needles are evergreen. They're usually 2.5 to 5 inches long. They're usually 3. They'll be in groups of 3, and they're slightly twisted needles per fascicle or bundle. And this is a really good characteristic to distinguish it from shortleaf pine, because you remember shortleaf's in 2s or 3s. The needles are stiff and typically yellow to green in color. It gets its specific epithet rigata from the rigid needles. Virginia pine, Pinus virginiana, is a somewhat scrubby pine and one of the 4 pine species native to Kentucky. Virginia pine, along with pitch pine and shortleaf pine, are pines that we don't usually see planted in the landscape. The ones we'll usually see are eastern white pine. It's also known as scrub pine, Jersey pine, and spruce pine. The tree tends to retain branch stubs along the trunk, and this adds to that really unkept appearance. It is a moderately fast-growing and relatively short-lived. It usually only lives up to about 90 years. The wood was historically used for underground coal mine timbers, railroad ties, fuel, tar production, and charcoal. It's usually found at higher elevations of the Piedmont and mountain regions of the eastern United States. In Kentucky, it's abundant throughout the Knobs, the Cumberland Plateau, and mountains, as well as the western coal fields. It is a pioneer species, just like our eastern red cedar was, that can grow on very poor sites, but its best growth obviously was going to be on well-drained, sandy, acidic, loamy soils. The leaves of Virginia pine are short needles. These are typically only 1.5 to 3 inches long, and they're often twisted, and they are in groups of 2s. So wrapping up the Pinaceae family, we have eastern hemlock, Tsuga canadensis. It's also called Canada hemlock or hemlock spruce. It is a slow-growing, long-lived tree that it may take 250 to 300 years to reach maturity and may live as long as 800 years. From the 1880s to the 1930s, eastern hemlock was extensively harvested for its bark, which was used in the leather tanning industry. Tragically, only the lower bark was peeled off, leaving the standing tree to slowly die. although this tree is often confused with hemlock that Socrates drank, which was poison hemlock, the plant, Conium maculatum. Eastern hemlock is not poisonous. Its needles have been used to make a tea high in vitamin C. The leaf is a flat needle that is single on this stem. So this is one of ours that's just a single borne needle. It's not in groups or bundles. The needles are mostly two-ranked, kind of like on a feather. And the needles, which means they're opposite from each other on the twig, about 180 degrees apart, which allows for the branch to lay flat. The needles are typically a half an inch long and taper to a dull point. They're shiny dark green on top and have two white lines of stomata on the underside. And remember, the stomata is those minute pores on the surface of the leaf or needle. And these needles usually persist for about 3 years. Our one representative from the Taxaceae family is the Canada yew, Taxus canadensis. It has an open, sprawling habit and is sometimes referred to as ground hemlock, and it's a shrub here. The species epithet means found in Canada, canadensis. The plant grows in partial to deep shade, typically in moist, cool soil where it may stabilize soils along streams, ponds, and bogs. Where its low spreading stems touch the ground, they may root and colonies may be formed. It rarely grows over 5 feet tall, with usually a spread of about 6 to 8 feet, so it's a lovely shrub in the understory. Canada yew is relatively rare in Kentucky and only found growing in a few moist gorge areas of the Pottsville Escarpment in eastern Kentucky in the Daniel Boone National Forest. It is considered a relic which has persisted since the Pleistocene glaciation. The leaves are 3/8 to 1 inch dark green needles, and they are attached singly in a spiral around the branch, but give a flattened appearance as they project laterally. The undersides are paler with prominent green midvein and appearing striped. There are a few online tree resources I'd like to mention as well for you to go out and maybe get to know some of the trees out in your yard or your park or the woods near your house. You can use things like iNaturalist. This is a free downloadable app for your phone. It's not a dichotomous key, but you can take a picture of whatever your object is. In this case, we're looking at trees. Take a picture of it, and it's going to give you a list of potentials that it may be, and you'll just look through that to see if you can find a matching one. So that's iNaturalist. Then there's the Virginia Tech Tree ID. This is both online if you want to collect your sample and bring it back in and sit in front of your computer and identify it. This will be a dichotomous key. They'll be asking you several questions about your whatever object you brought in. In this case, like we said, leaves. It's going to ask you, are they needles or broadleaf? How are they arranged? What color they are, whatnot. And it does it visually with photographs, so it's very nice. There is also a downloadable app for your phone. It's really robust and can be maybe a little bit overwhelming on your phone, but it's great to sit at your desktop. Then there's the Arbor Day tree identification. You can do this online as well. It's not an app, but it is one of those that you'll need to bring your sample inside and identify at your desk. Then there's the UK Forestry and Natural Resources Tree ID videos. These are just videos that kind of help you review some of the basics of tree identification, like what type of leaf it is, how is the leaf arranged, what's the leaf form. So check those out. Those can be very helpful if you forget some of the terminology. And then as we mentioned before, all of the species that we've reviewed today for our conifers, which is briefly touched on, each one of those has a video that goes along with them that's much more in depth. It'll be a 6 to 8 minute video, talks about where it grows, goes into detail about leaves, bark, fruit, flower, some fun facts about it as well. So check those out at University of Kentucky Forestry Natural Resources Common Trees of Kentucky. And then there's also the University of Kentucky's Native Trees of Kentucky fact sheets. Check those out as well. And then there's a few regular tree ID resources that are books or booklets that I like to use really well. The one at the top on the left, the Tree Finder, is a fantastic little pocket dichotomous key. It's got about 70 different tree species in there, and those are going to be the eastern half of the United States. It's very user friendly, not thick with scientific jargon. Every it seems like a new terminology. If it pops out, it explains what it means. Really nice dichotomous key that helps you whittle down what you're looking at to try to identify it. And then one book I really love is The Trees and Shrubs of Kentucky by Mary Wharton and Roger Barber, up there on the top as well. This is a great hardback book, not one you'd probably want to take out in the field. But it's got all of the trees that we find in Kentucky, along with some shrubs that show you its descriptions and photographs throughout the season. So you'll see the flower, you'll see the fruit, you're going to see the twig bare in the winter if it's deciduous, you're going to see the form, the bark, and then get a general brief history about each one of those. And then we have the Sibley's Guide to Trees. It's a great one. You could carry it out in the field. It's definitely not pocket size, but it's very useful guide to trees. Lots of great pictures in there and descriptions. And then the bottom one is the Natural History of Trees of Eastern and Central North America. This is just a great book that talks about some of the natural history of trees and kind of cool things like where did the common name come from? How was this tree used? And all these just fun things about many of the trees that we find here in the state. I hope you enjoy learning about some of the conifers here in Kentucky. And as we approach winter, this is a great time of the year to go out and check out some of those conifers.
Well, that was great. I really appreciate that. But I don't know how you remember all of that. There's no way I could. I know you all are, have the degree and everything, but there's no way I could remember all those common
I
names.
know. A lot of depth there, Laura. Yes, that's
Yeah,
all.
Well,
exactly.
remember, it's a recording too, so that helps.
That's true. That's true.
It
Well, that was
doesn't.
great. It's a great overview of what all those trees are. And I just thought at Christmas time with people,
Right.
shopping for Christmas trees and things, it might be kind of nice to hear
Yeah.
about those.
Right. And I think it's a really nice segue into this next feature with
I
Anna,
know.
which is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Using conifers, making some stuff for our winter tables or around our house. I can't wait to see it. So,
I know. Welcome, Anna.
Greetings.
We had Anna on for Thanksgiving and I was like, "Oh, can you do something like that for Christmas?" And she's like, "Why not?"
Oh,
So,
oh,
and we actually had someone that had
one of our
sent us,
viewers. Yes, I
yes, one
love
of our
it.
viewers sent us a photograph and I sent it to Anna and it was just awesome. I mean, they did a wonderful
They
job.
did. They
And
really did.
Anna, thank you for being on the show again and inspiring our viewers.
Yes, I
Of
love it, man.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool seeing, how people take an idea and kind of build on it and make it
Mhm.
even more cool. And yeah, maybe we need to start like crowdsourcing
There
new
we go.
presenters from
I
the
like that.
audience
I
because
bet.
like people are out there getting creative with their foraging. So yeah, having said that, if you all are out there foraging for Christmas
Yeah.
decorations, for holiday decorations, I know I would love to see your results, and I'm sure
Mhm.
that Renee and Billy would love to see that.
Definitely.
So of course, feel free to share if you end up doing any foraged holiday decorating this time around.
Mhm.
And I'm so happy to be following Lori's presentation about conifers because you guessed it, we are going to be using conifers for this adventure. Although it's not going to be quite as many as you would expect, I put a little twist on it because my one conifer tree, I was so interested to hear Lori say that Virginia pines are the shortest, like very short-lived compared to many of the other ones, because
Mhm.
I have a huge Virginia pine out in my field and she is on the way out.
Oh,
So I had to well, you'll see. I
Okay.
adapted and overcame with my wreath, and I did use some conifer in it. But
Oh,
yeah,
look forward to it.
yeah.
I did not realize that they were, a shorter lived species, but that makes sense because it's a very large Virginia pine and it
Mhm.
is definitely
Wow. Foraging.
um,
All right.
Well, we're looking
definitely
forward
on
to
the way
your
out.
presentation.
Yes. So,
Thanks, Anna.
speaking of conifers, let's go ahead and get started. Everything look okay?
Yes,
All right,
looks good.
sweet. So, yeah, let's go ahead and head into it. So, what is the point of going and, foraging around in the woods for your decorations when you can just go to um, any of a number of big box stores or even small businesses and get some decorations without getting nearly so many scratches and possibly bug bites, depending on how warm it is for Christmas in Kentucky. Well, there's lots of different reasons, and I probably don't need to tell you because you are here listening to From the Woods today. So the number one, of course, reason why you would want to forage your decorating essentials is you have an excuse to get out in the woods, right? We're always looking for excuses to get out in the woods here, and this is a great one. Especially during the season, it's so busy, it can be really easy to forget about taking some time to get out in nature, whether it's exploring your own property, checking some stuff on your own property, or getting out in, on a local public land near you. It's a great excuse to get out in the woods. Starting a holiday tradition. Of course, this is a big one, whether it's just for you or it's a family event. It's great to get kids out there, get them collecting, getting them thinking about, the species that are in the woods near them and learning to identify things and, appreciating the things that we can get from the land here in Kentucky, whether that's, wood products or whether that's forage decorations for their Christmas wreaths. You can learn more about your local plants. This is a great opportunity to take some of those identification tips that Lori went over and head out into the woods and start seeing what you can identify. So another lovely way to become more familiar with, what's outside your door and what's in your community. And this is also a good alternative if you're somebody that loves the idea of harvesting a live Christmas tree, maybe going out with your family and cutting a live Christmas tree, but it's just not feasible for you, whether it's space, time, availability, whatever it might be. You might not be able to go out and cut down a full-on tree and bring it into your house, but foraging for the elements that you need to make a wreath might be a great alternative to that. That is also a lot easier to keep in your house and sheds less needles. Not that I don't love a live tree. So what are you going to need to do this? Well, first of all, again, some helping hands never hurts. So this is a great activity for kids. But, if you're heading out there by yourself to get some alone time in the woods, not a bad thing either. So first of all, you're going to need some string. Gardening twine or yarn works well. It's great if it's something biodegradable, and a neutral color is best. So a light brown, tan, something that's going to kind of blend in with the wreath once you put it all together. Some ribbon, and if you don't have any ribbon on hand, I feel like a lot of us do this time of year. You can take something off of a present to use. You might have some holiday ribbon stashed away. If you don't have any of that, you might even be able to cut ribbon out of, some scraps, cloth scraps that you have on hand. We're all about being sustainable and using what you have with this project, as you will see. This might very well be a no-buy project for most people. On that note, for the base of it, we're going to be using a wire coat hanger. So hopefully that's something you've got in hand. You need some kind of clippers to help you when you're collecting all the foraged items. And you need access to space to forage. Now, anytime I do like a foraging or crafting idea and I'm sharing it with you all, I always say, like, just be sure that you cover your bases on where you're going out to forage. Not everywhere is that it might not be compliant with the rules of that public space. Not everywhere is forager friendly. If it's public land, be sure that you're checking the rules. If it's your neighbor's land, be sure that they're okay if you're on it and they know what you're doing. If you're fortunate enough to own, your own land or have access to your own land, then that is great. But just be sure that you've, crossed your T's and dotted your I's as far as knowing that you can be in that space and you can be collecting items. So we don't want anybody getting in trouble making a wreath. So on the note of like things to be aware of for safety, a lot of those plants that we associate with the holidays and holiday decorating are toxic or semi-toxic, or they have parts of the plant that are toxic. So that's something to be aware of if you have concerns about pets or kids potentially being exposed to items or getting into it. So just some common native ones that you very well might see around that look like really good ideas to put in a wreath, but may not be if you have pets or kids, are the American holly, American mistletoe, and Eastern red cedar. So I'm not saying don't consider using these, but just be aware they may not be a good option for you if, you have those safety concerns of, you know, little kids and pets and folks that you might not want to be getting a hold of some toxic plants. What to forage? Well, this is where it gets exciting because guess what? It's totally up to you, except for a couple things that you definitely do need to get. So you need to get some standing dry grass. So go out to an old field, a fence row, something like that, and just cut down some big old handfuls of whatever standing grass you have in that area. Um, I have a ton of broom sedge out in my front field because my sheep do not want to eat it. So I just went out there and cut a grocery bag full of that, cut it off at the base so it's nice and long. Imagine you're going to make a broom, and that is perfect. Really, basically any species is going to work for this. So just whatever you kind of have available in whatever waste space or field that you have nearby. Some evergreen branches are great. We are going to have some evergreen in this. And then whatever else you find, get inventive. Seed pods, maybe some goldenrod galls or, fun seed heads on grass, foxtail grass or something like that. Just whatever you find laying around that you think would look very cool on a wreath, and think outside the box. Everyone is here because they are a nerd of some kind for nature, right? So let your wreath reflect that. And be sure to do a bug check before you bring items inside, unless you want bugs in your wreath to be one of the things that reflects your, who you are as a naturalist. So do a little shake, make sure you're not bringing in any unwanted holiday guests. Um, for the evergreens and forage items, if possible, leave a good couple inches of stem. Yeah, I know it's not always possible. Some things, like if you break them off, they don't really have a stem to them. But wherever possible, be sure that you're trimming them off using your clippers, leaving a little bit of stem behind. So here's just some ideas of things that, I came across while I was outside that I took some pictures from iNaturalist of that might give you some ideas, but definitely just go out there and wander around. This is the fun part. Wander around, see what you see what catches your eye, and clip it off, giving yourself a couple inches of stem to work with once you get inside. I think here we've got, um, our little magnolia seed pod. Those are really cool looking. Of course, here's our Virginia pine. I have a Virginia pine, as I mentioned, and I just like to break off a branch with like multiple pine cones on it. It worked really well for this project. Um, Here's your call to action for removing invasive species. Multiflora rose hips are really easy to spot this time of year, and you can clip them off in a group. Um, and they can be used for all sorts of really lovely holiday decorations, and you're removing the seed from the environment. So you are doing your good deed for the holidays if you decorate with multiflora rose hips. Some beautiful foxtail grass seed head, and I think that's a buttonbush fruit there. So just get creative, go out there and forage. That's what it's all about, and see what you see that catches your eye. So now that you've gone outside and you've ran around in the woods and you've, come back with a big old bag of things that you can use, um, let's get down to the crafting part, shall we? So you can buy a wreath base, and I'm not saying by this being sustainable that means that you can't go out and buy a pre-made wreath base, because you completely can. They're less than $2 in a lot of places. They're very cheap. You can get a wire one and you can just tie all of your elements to it that you foraged, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Um, Very easy to get a hold of this time of year, very affordable. But if you're interested in just doing everything with items that you already have on hand, you can use a wire coat hanger to make this base. And you might have seen people do this before. We're going to do it just a tiny bit different, because I found if you just take a wire coat hanger and you tie things to it, they kind of slip around and you can see, parts of the coat hanger sticking through, and you can kind of tell that you made the wreath with a coat hanger. So we're going to do it a little bit different, but we are going to use a coat hanger for the base. So just bend it in a circle. And then the hook is actually going to be on the bottom of the wreath. So you're not hanging it from the hook as you might imagine you would. That is going to be the bottom. So just keep that in mind when you're, crafting later on, that's the direction that you're looking at it in. So once you've got your coat hanger, guys, you got to bear with me here. Bear with me here from the woods today, because this is where it gets a little bit like so uncomplicated, but when I explain it, it will sound like I'm way overcomplicating it. But I promise you, once you start doing it, you're going to be like, this is much easier than she made it look. So you're going to take a little bundle of your grass. Imagine you're making yourself a single serving of spaghetti, and you're just going to put it down and wrap a string around the base. About a foot of string is sufficient for this. And you're going to just tie it, leaving two long tails. So you can see, I don't know if my mouse is showing up, but if anyone lets me know in the chat if my mouse is showing up, then that might, kind of help. It is lovely, thank you. That might kind of help with what I'm trying to point out here. But you'll just lay the string down, lay your little spaghetti bundle of dried grass on top of it, and it's going to depend on species. The broom sedge kind of has a lot of volume, so I didn't have to use a lot. If it's a finer grass, you might have to use a little bit more. But just tie it, and then you'll have a little bundle with the long tails of string. And then you're going to get another second little bundle, single serving spaghetti bundle of grass, and you're going to put it on top of that. And you're going to tie that. And then you're going to do that again. So you have a third. So you have three little bundles that are kind of individually tied off, but like tucked right in on each other, if that makes sense. And then that last one, you'll just tie it with a double knot and trim your grass tails off. So you'll almost have like a little broom, if that makes sense. If you've ever looked closely at the knots that hold like a traditional straw broom together, it looks a little bit like this. And don't quote me on that because I've never made a broom, but I just imagine it would look like that. So once you've got those three bundles, they're kind of flattened because they're laying like side by side by side. You're just going to take them and pinch them around the coat hanger and tie them down in place with a piece of string. And this, you could grab like just a bundle of grass and tie it to the coat hanger, but that's where I found that it kind of slips around and it doesn't completely cover the coat hanger, and you kind of have it sticking out, and you can kind of see that you used a coat hanger to do this. So creating those three bundles together and then wrapping them around the coat hanger and tying them in place kind of covers the coat hanger better. So hopefully that makes sense. It's very easy to like do, but very difficult to explain. And then you're just going to do the same thing again. Get your three little single serving spaghetti bundles that are tied off individually, trim the strings, and then you're going to add the next one just about 3 inches or so up from where you tied the first bundle. So there's my first one there that I tied down. You can see where I tied it with the, I just tied it over top. So it's fastened onto the coat hanger. And then I'm putting my next little group of 3 up here. And then when I tie the next little group of 3 onto the coat hanger, I'm first going to bend down this big loose end of my first bundle over top of it and tie it down on top of my second bundle. So they're both attached to the hanger frame. So you don't have this like big old grass sticking out there. So just repeat that all the way around until you've got your nice little wreath, your nice little grass covered wreath all the way around your coat hanger. And then you can give it a little fluff. You can, tie down the final loose end that you've got when you reach back to where you started. If you don't like these little parts sticking out here, you can trim those off. Just whatever makes your heart happy as far as shaping this, go ahead and do that now. Next, oh no, stop it. You're going to take the hook, and remember I told you the hook is going to be the bottom of it. So you're just going to take the hook and bend it up over the wreath and kind of hook it like so on the bottom here. So just bend it up, and that is going to be almost a clip that will hold all of the decorations that are going to be at the bottom of the wreath. So the majority of this wreath, it's a grass wreath. And then you're really adding in your forage decorations kind of as a, decorative piece on the bottom of it. And what I like about this is it's a little bit different than like your normal entirely conifer based wreath. And you can also reuse this grass base for any type of seasonal wreath. So maybe when spring comes around, you might want to put some, you might want to recreate this using the same base, but with, new growth, new tree growth, new little flowers that are coming up, whatever you can find in the spring, whatever you can forage. You can reuse this grass base for different seasons. So you'll take that grass base, fold your coat hanger up over it like so. And then you're going to take all your foraged items. And this is why it's important that you leave those couple inches of stem on there, if at all possible, because you're not going to do any fancy hot glue gun. You're not going to do any knots. You're not going to do anything wild like that. You're just going to take your foraged items and push them underneath the bent hook that you've bent up to create that clip. And they'll just be held in place against the grass base by that coat hanger hook. So push them in from either side until it's starting to look like it's filled out. And then if you have any items that you collected and they just don't have enough stem on them, or they have really fragile stems, you can use some string to kind of help you out. So like I collected all these sycamore fruits that I really liked, and they didn't like, you couldn't really push them underneath the coat hanger hook because they have a very fragile stem. So I just tied them together kind of in a little bouquet type of thing here. And then I tied them to the coat hanger hook. So you can do that if you need to, if you don't have a sturdy enough stem on something. So I loved having those branches with multiple pine cones on them from my Virginia pine. I got some Virginia pine twigs that were long enough to poke under the coat hanger. And I just, just put it in there. Just put it in there until you look at it and you're like, that looks like enough things that I have foraged on my wreath. So no real professional way to do this, guys. It's just whatever makes your heart happy. And then our final thing that we're going to do, I don't know if you can really see here, but you can kind of still see the coat hanger hook that we bent up here to keep everything in place. You can kind of still see it. So to cover that, use a bow. And I'll tell you the way that I did it, but I'll also tell you, you might have pre-made bows already hanging around. You might not need to get into all this excitement, but if you don't and you just have ribbon, then here's how to make a really quick little bow that you can put on the bottom and you can use it to cover that wire. So I just took a ribbon and I just folded it around itself a couple times. I wrapped this one around my hand and it made like a little tiny bow that just perfectly covered the coat hanger. And then you're going to cut a ribbon that is twice the length of how you want like the bow's tails to be when they're hanging down. And then you're going to lay your folded part over top of the tails right in the middle. And then take a stick, just an extra stick. I know that you have extra sticks at this point. Look at how messy my table was by the end. And lay it long ways on your ribbons as well. Take one little piece of ribbon and tie it right around the middle, nice and tight, and trim the ends. And then when you flip it back over, you can kind of pull the tails down, adjust everything so it's bow shaped. The stick will be still like behind there, held into place by this middle part that you tied down. And then the stick, you can just use it to push into all of your greenery there at the bottom of the wreath. And then you don't have to mess around with like trying to tie something to the coat hanger hook when it's buried in pine leaves and, all of that disaster. So it's easier to just put a stick in the ribbon and then you can just push it in there and fluff it up so it covers up, any part of the coat hanger that might be still visible at that point. So last but not least, we used our coat hanger hook to hold everything in place at the bottom of the wreath. So what I did to hang it was I just took a little loop of ribbon and you just lay the wreath across it and tuck one end through the other end here. And then you've got, a nice little ribbon loop at the top of your wreath to hang it. And then I was feeling fancy and I still had a lot of forage stuff left. And I kind of wanted, see, here's the string where I tied the grass down when I made that frame. I just went in here with some seed heads that I had and sort of poked them into the grass frame of the wreath to kind of cover up that string and, just add a little extra fun and, be able to incorporate some more of the stuff I had foraged. So you can do any of that if you want to. Remove any visible string ends, do any last minute like trimming and fluffing and that kind of thing. And then you're good to go. You've got a nice little wreath that is going to hold up well past the holidays, so you won't need to worry about that. And then if you want to do this next year and you want to do it very far in advance, so you might have to worry about it drying out. You really don't have to worry about a lot with this wreath because it is primarily items that are already dried, right? But because of those evergreen branches at the bottom, you may see those kind of becoming brittle. and drying out if you've collected them well in advance or if the wreath has been hanging for a while. You can mist them with a spray bottle if you need to, but really, to be honest, like I've made wreaths like this around Thanksgiving, and the needles hold up pretty well past, well like into New Year's. So because you're not using a ton of evergreen on it, um, you don't have a lot of shedding or, obvious dead patches or anything like that. And you could always pull them out and like put some new fresh ones in there if you really wanted to. Um, partway through the holiday season. So that is it. I promise you, I made it look so much more complicated than it actually is. It is very easy to make. It just takes you, minus the time to go out and forage. It just takes, 15 or 20 minutes to put together. And it's a great project to give you an excuse again to get out there in the woods, practice identifying your conifers, and just, get some fresh air and enjoy some beautiful Kentucky winter outdoors. So thanks so much for joining me for this little adventure. Happy holidays, happy New Year, happy foraging, of course. And thank you so much to Renee and Billy, as always, for having me on From the Woods today. I so appreciate all the work that they do on the show, and I know that you all do as well. So having said all of that, I will go ahead and hand it back over to Billy and Renee.
Wonderful. It was an awesome segment. Thank
I
you so much.
know. I know it's inspiring, really.
Yes, it is. And when you made the bow, I was like, here I'm sitting here like every time I make a bow, I'm sitting there like doing it over and over. I was like, oh my goodness, that would have been an easier way to do it than the way I was doing it. So I'm inspired to make more bows now because bows take a while to make the way I
They
was doing
do. Yeah.
it.
And I know there's all these like different fancy ones, and I wish I could do them, but I just don't know if it's like my destiny, I don't know if it's for me. I don't know if it's meant for me. And that's
Oh,
okay.
yes,
That's
right.
okay. So that's my shortcut bow.
Well, I
Oh,
love it. I love it because I was like, oh, why didn't I ever think of that? That's great.
Yes.
So I appreciate your segment. I appreciate you always, getting
yeah.
us out in the woods and showing us some things we could possibly do. And I know I will definitely have you on in 2026.
Yeah.
Yes, you know where to find me.
I do.
Yes. Oh,
Thank
Always
you.
goodness.
happy to be here. I appreciate you all.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
We
much.
appreciate you.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, oh, Renee, we've done it again.
I know. One more year down. We started
Wow.
the show in April of 2020, and we've been going strong ever since. So, but
Because of you all.
yeah, it wouldn't have happened without you all. So thank you for joining us each and every week because we wouldn't have had a show without you all.
I
So
know.
thank you so
Oh,
much.
yes, indeed. And please enjoy each other, enjoy your family, enjoy the great outdoors. And we'll look forward to seeing you all in 2026 on January 7th with our next live episode. But if you all do get the itch for a little From the Woods today, we've got a lot of archived videos on fromthewoodstoday.com that you can access or from our YouTube channel as well. But really appreciate Laurie and Anna with great segments to kind of wrap us up today, Renee.
Definitely. I told you it was going to be a month of Christmas and it was. So,
You brought it. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I love Christmas. So
Yeah, I know.
that's part of me shining through the show.
Good stuff. Good
All
stuff.
right. Well,
All
thank
right.
you
Well,
so much again for joining us. Like you said, we won't be here for the next 2 weeks, but fromthewoodstoday.com is always on, so you can
yep.
always watch us there. So
Yeah.
you
And
all,
share with your family and friends over the
yes,
holidays. Yes.
yes. You
Yeah.
all have a blessed holiday and you all take care.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. See you all. Be safe out there.